Hi, everyone. Welcome to As You Are. I'm Alexa.
And I'm Andrea.
If you're new here, welcome and please make sure to subscribe.
And if you've been here before, thank you for your love and support.
So, today is part 2 meditation, where we're going to talk about boundaries and limiting beliefs. As usual, we're going to get into the polls first.
Yes.
So, if you're not on our Instagram, make sure to follow us on Instagram because every Saturday we post polls with questions that you can interact to, and they are about the topic that we're going to discuss.
Which help us understand a little bit more about everyone's situation and what they're going through. And we post on Saturdays also where you can write in questions or if you prefer to DM us if you have any questions about the topic that we posted. So feel free to reach out and we'll try to answer any questions.
Yeah. But we've been loving the polls. Thank you so much to everyone who participates.
Yeah.
We love seeing everyone's answers.
Yeah, and we love that more people are interacting also.
Yes.
We've been getting more answers from people, and we had 2 polls on Saturday.
Yes. Do you want to read them?
Yes. Okay, so the first poll was biggest challenge with personal boundaries. We had 3 options. The first option, fear of conflict, which we had 6 votes. Then guilt for saying no, 9 votes. And not knowing what my boundaries are, 5 votes. Guilt for saying no was the one that won, but then there was almost a tie between fear of conflict and not knowing what my boundaries are.
Okay. Yeah, guilt for saying no. So when we were looking at these answers, we felt that the first 2, which are fear of conflict and guilt for saying no, is maybe expectations that you set for yourself and from other people that a lot of the times might be a false expectation of a way that a certain person might react, or also not being true to your beliefs and who you are.
Yeah, not living up to what you truly want to do, or you just try to fit into something and not
put yourself first.
Yeah.
So what we were saying is that it's interesting that it comes from a place of empathy. Like if you're feeling guilty for saying no, it comes from a place of empathy because you don't want to disappoint the other person. And if there's a fear of conflict, then it's the same situation where you don't want to upset the other person. So it's really based off of someone else's reaction is a lot of the times the reason why we don't respect our personal boundaries.
Yeah, and it's putting the other person first instead of putting yourself first.
Yes. And what we've come to realize is that at the end of the day, when you put someone else first, that means you're not putting yourself first, which means that you're not acting to the best of your abilities. And if you're not being 100% yourself, then at the end of the day, everyone loses. So
yeah, because people don't want you to be someone that you're not. Like
Exactly.
If someone really cares about you, they want you to be your true self and for you to be happy with who you are and be authentic.
And like you're supposed to want to do whatever the person asks you to do. For example, it's happened to me before where someone asks me to do something and I say yes when I really meant to say no. And I end up doing the thing not wrong, but like not
to the best of your abilities.
Not to the best of my abilities. And so it ends up backfiring on me and backfiring on the person because it's like, okay, but you told me you could do it, but now you're not, like, do you want to do it? Do you not want to do it? Like, what is it?
Yeah, and also people can tell too, like when you do things genuinely or like when you are not.
Yeah, when you're forcing yourself.
Yeah, when you're forcing yourself. And the same thing happens with work. Like when you want to do something and you might not be in the mood for doing that day, you just half-ass it, you know?
Yeah, you half-ass, and then you end up doing it and not to the best of your abilities. And so at the end of the day, it's like, no, you might as well be clear about a boundary of no, I don't want to do it. And that way, maybe the person might find someone that's better suited for the task or, you know.
Or at a different time or.
Yeah. So we felt like both of the top 2 answers are kind of similar. Fear of conflict and guilt for saying no. And then the one that's not knowing my personal boundaries. To anyone that responded that, we highly encourage you to journal. Journal.
Yeah, I think it goes back to our first episode where we were saying that when you start journaling and meditating, you connect with yourself more and then you start understanding literally what you want and you don't want. And it's like listening to your own self more and more and be like, oh, actually, I didn't like this because this, and that. And then you're like, okay, I can put that in my boundary list or be like more conscious about decisions that you make later on.
That's a good point, because I think decisiveness is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't know what you want, then it's very hard for you to be decisive.
Yes.
So then it's very easy for people to take advantage of you because you're not being clear about, yes, I can do this, and or no, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
the more that you journal, the more that, like you said, you get to know yourself, and the more that you can be decisive.
Yeah.
Like give an answer on the
Yeah,
spot.
and
No,
they
that
also,
doesn't sit right with me, or yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, and also it kind of eventually gives you more confidence in yourself too, and be like more upfront about things.
Yes, that's something that I've gained a lot this year, is being able to put my foot forward, being like, this is me.
And I've noticed that.
Yeah.
In yourself, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
that
good
I think you put effort into actively doing that for yourself, and I've noticed that.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think it really started for me at work, because if you haven't watched episode 1, watch episode 1 to see how we came about creating this podcast and knowing each other. But in that episode, we spoke about how we used to work in the same office. And in that environment, I really learned about my boundaries because they were tested a lot. And speaking up for myself. But also, I think with boundaries, it's also knowing what your responsibilities are. Because I've had someone recently have their boss ask them to do something and they weren't comfortable doing it, but they said, but this other person is always like does it, so if I say no, then I'm gonna look like I don't want to do it.
Yes.
And I told the person, like, no.
But honestly, I can't fully relate to that situation too.
Yes, because it's kind of like a peer pressure thing where, well, if that person's doing it, then I'm gonna look like weak or weird.
Like you're gonna be the outsider.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the outsider if I say no to it. But Jeffrey Allen, that did the Duality meditation program on Mind Valley, which I also mentioned in part 1 of the meditation.
Yeah.
So in his program, he talks a lot about seniority when it comes to boundaries.
What do you mean by seniority?
Seniority is like, it's like being a senior. So you're showing that you're wise in this subject, and you own that you have a choice in the matter, and you basically show yourself as not as superior, but as like you stand straight in front of the person that's asking you to do the task. So I told him, like, this is an opportunity for you to show your seniority, and maybe they won't give you these types of jobs anymore, and they'll respect you for speaking your truth, and they'll maybe identify that as a strength of a leader and put you in a more leadership position. So don't assume, because he was scared of not getting a promotion, and he was scared of being seen as a certain way. Maybe he was scared of being seen as a type of person that didn't want to do the job. Is not willing to like bend to do certain things. But I think there's, to a certain extent, obviously you have to
compromise certain
so sometimes you have to compromise in certain cases. But if it's something that really doesn't sit with you, don't do it just because other people are doing it, because ultimately you're going to keep attracting that same situation to you over and over and over again.
And it's also, I feel it's like setting a pattern in a way that,
yes, exactly,
if you keep saying yes, why wouldn't they give you more stuff or more things that you don't want to do? But if you set boundaries, again, it's like people will understand. And also you're setting the right expectations for people when they reach out to you. It's like, okay, he might say no, or he might say yes.
It's like with boundaries, and that's where I think the word seniority comes in, is it translates in your energy what type of person that you are and what you will accept and not accept.
Yes.
Very subtly, people can tell, I can ask this person to do that and they will do it.
Yes.
And other people, they're like, yeah, no, I can't ask her to do that. She's not going to do it.
Yeah.
So it's very subconscious, but people know. It's like they know you have that boundary. They can't see it. They don't know why, but they just know.
Yes.
Maybe not,
Yeah. And when you say seniority, like the first word that comes to my mind, it's like confidence. And to get to a senior level position in a job, just to put it that way, you have to have experience so you can get to that level. So with experience comes confidence as well.
Yes.
So I guess when he was saying seniority, comes also from a place of confidence and being like, I'm confident with myself, and I'm confident that I can say no.
Yes.
Because if I have appropriate reasons, I can say no.
And you know what I realized ultimately is that if ever there's fear stopping you from saying no, and turns out that if you spoke up and said no, then there was bad repercussions, most likely it wasn't the environment for you to be in. You just have to trust that at the end of the day, as long as you follow yourself, your guides, your intuition, then it'll lead you to where you're ultimately meant to be the truest version of yourself.
Yeah, and also I feel people who are very successful, they're not afraid of saying whatever they think. And I've noticed also in jobs, people who are very well spoken in a way that with boundaries, or also that they're very open to speak their mind, are the ones that go up the ladder faster.
Yes, yes.
Because if you're like a people, like, at least let's put a design example. If you're in a meeting and you're like, yeah, I like everything, yeah, I don't have anything
you don't
to
have
say,
an opinion,
like,
you don't have any conflict, you don't have any, it's like you stay,
yeah, and people will want to work with you. For example, I find myself gravitate a lot towards people who are a bit challenging in a way. Like, I don't like to be friends when they're like, yeah, or if I ask for advice, they're like, no, everything's good. You know, that people who...
I hate that.
It's not that I want to be challenged all the time, but I want people who I feel they're honest with me, or sincere.
Yes, exactly.
And honestly, I gravitate a lot, like my closest people, my best friends. I know that if I ask them something, they're gonna be honest about it, and I prefer them saying something that might not sit well with me at first, but then I know that it's genuinely what they believe, instead of just trying to be people pleaser and being like, yeah, I agree with everything you say, or I love everything, blah blah blah. So I don't think
people pleasing has a lot to do with it.
Yes, and I don't think anyone honestly would like to be with someone, or would like to have a friend who is a people pleaser or a yes person.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, people will appreciate you for being you a long run.
Yes.
Maybe in the moment you might avoid a conflict. Maybe in the moment you might avoid feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Long term, the game is to be truthful to yourself, and people will recognize that you're authentic, and you'll gravitate the right people to your environment. Because also, if there's a lot of people that are maybe negative or not bringing you in like into the right momentum, I feel a lot of it also comes from within, where maybe you're accepting too many things from them, or you're not setting the right expectations. And it's very easy to come from a victim mindset where you're like, oh, but it's the people around me. It's like, no. Because you're
letting that people be close to you. And it's what you're saying. You might be attracting those people just with the mentality that you have.
Exactly. Because people feel your energy. It's like they see it, even the confidence, even the way it's like you can tell when someone is walking confident in their skin.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to look like someone like super glamorous and I'm like confident. No. Even the most like reserved person can be very confident and grounded in who they are.
No, yeah. And you know those type of people who it's like there's always something happening to them?
Yes.
It's like
I know those type of people.
Well, it's like their aura, their mentality, it's just they keep attracting certain things. So it's just like trying to
I believe that.
Yeah, it's trying to break that pattern and start fresh and start thinking more authentic and start attracting more things that are aligned to what you truly believe in.
Okay, so how does that relate to meditation? Because for me, where I really found that connection with how I can set my boundaries through meditation is with the program with Jeffrey Allen. In one portion of the program, he had you imagine your aura in your meditation. And he was saying, imagine a moment where you let go of your seniority. So a moment where you wanted to say no, but you said yes. You imagine your aura. And he asks you, how did your aura feel at that time? Because he says your aura also helps you in setting your boundaries, because your aura can be very wide. It can be very tight to you. It can be very like foggy and loose, or it can be very defined.
Wow. Okay.
And I've actually done the exercise and realized, even if I don't feel like I'm super connected to my aura per se, like I can't see my aura, I just imagine a ball around me is
Yeah.
basically what I imagine. And I've imagined those situations in which I
wanted to say no and you said yes.
exactly. And I can feel at that time that it was foggy and not very defined and
But
kind
when he
of
says
loose.
that, does he want you to put an emotion to it or just to understand?
No, very neutrally. It's always
Neutrally.
from a neutral point of view. And it's just put yourself back in that situation and just from a neutral perspective analyze how was this ball around me. And so for future interactions, if you know that you're going to have, for example, if you're going to sit at a negotiation table and you know that someone is going to ask you to do something that is going to be a hard way to say yes or no, to imagine how your day is going to go, imagine the conversation, and imagine yourself in that moment having a very tight to you aura and very defined. And it has helped me.
Wow.
And keeping my boundaries.
Because I feel that exercise helps you go back to the situation, connect with yourself, and being like, why did I feel that way and why did it affect me so much? To try to go back and understand basically why did it affect you or why.
Yes, but I think like the why is more in the journaling aspect of it.
Oh, okay.
Whereas this is just an energy thing. You're not trying to associate a meaning behind it or whatever. You're just understanding, oh, this was very fluid. Like I could have done a better job at being a lot more solid in with my energy. So it's helped me a lot to do that.
Wow. I've never done anything related to the aura, or I've never done any meditations regarding that, which is really interesting, and I'm very curious about that now.
I had never done that either until that program. And I'm telling you, it's helped a lot. And also imagine how I'm going to be in the situation. And that's even, it could be during meditation or even not even like outside of meditation, just going through your day and imagining having these conversations in your mind with people. Even like I imagine just standing more straight. I imagine just being more firm, you know?
Yeah, putting yourself more confident.
Yeah, like more in a confident, like dominant posture.
Okay, it's like put your mentality up to like a specific state of mind.
Yes. So another aspect in which meditation can help with boundaries, and this was also from the Mind Valley program with Jeffrey Allen, is to release energy that is foreign and not yours. So he's basically started this whole boundary topic talking about empathy, and that's the reason why most humans usually struggle with setting boundaries is because of their empathy towards other humans. And that relates to actually the second question of the poll that we had, which was what impacts your mindset the most.
Yes, let me open it. Okay, so the second poll we did was, what do you think impacts your mindset the most? And then we have environment with 5 votes, self-talk with 9 votes, and social circle with 8 votes. So the one affects more people is self-talk, then social circles and environments.
So I'll focus right now on environments and social circle because that's related to that aspect of meditation that I think it can help with is he mentioned how unaware we are on a daily basis of how much other people's thoughts and opinions and all of that live within us. Through doing this program with him, I realized just how much I had been holding on to from other people. And really just having that moment where I could sit with myself, especially if it was, for example, something had just happened and I felt overwhelmed by it, then I'm like, okay, I need to go into meditation and kind of understand that and why it even affects me so much. And so in the meditation, you always look at it from a neutral perspective. But then the more questions that you ask yourself very neutrally, you'll always come to the bottom line answer, like root answer, which is usually outside of you. It comes from somebody else. It comes from something else, from overall beliefs of the society you were brought into.
So it goes back to, again, to putting other people first instead of yourself.
Yes.
So you're holding on to others' thoughts or beliefs and then putting them first instead of yours.
So I think that's where boundaries and limiting beliefs are tied hand in hand a lot because it's like a one package.
Package deal.
Because with limiting beliefs, one of your limiting beliefs might be to think, oh, if I don't please people, then this.
Yes.
So because of that limiting belief, you cannot set boundaries properly.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people suffer from that. I know we do because we have talked about it, and we have also talked that we want to overcome that. We have talked about this before, that we both want to be able to say no more in a way, that we are both that we don't say no just because we don't want to in some way hurt the other person. And I remember one time we were at this farmer's market and we were like just going through the stands, and one girl, do you remember? One girl was like, hey, she was selling bread. She was like, hey, do you want to try my bread? And I really didn't want to try it. So, but also I didn't want to say like no, but I was like, maybe later. And then you looked at me and you were like, that was good. And I was like, thank you.
That's hilarious. Oh my god.
Because it's like, I didn't want to like, no, I don't want to try your bread, but it's like, I didn't want to eat it either. So I was like, maybe later. But it's so funny, like those little things, even things that small.
It's like, until you pay attention to it, you don't realize how much you betray yourself on a daily basis.
No. Or like another time we were at this showcase and someone wanted to give us like a catalog, and you don't want to say no because it's like they're showing you their products, whatever. And I kept taking them, but I knew that I was like going to throw them as soon as I left the showcase. But you were like, no, thank you. You're good. So small things like that, it's just like you don't realize, but in the day-to-day you have to make so many decisions throughout the day naturally.
Yes.
And without realizing, you are putting so many people in front on top of you instead of yourself first. So it's small, you can start with small acts like that, just being
literally
just with smaller tasks, with smaller situations. Maybe don't start with when your boss asks you to do something, but more day to day, and then you'll gain more confidence into your own, into being more.
That's a very good point.
Into setting more boundaries.
And also, a lot of times I feel we have reasonings in our mind as to why we should say yes instead of no.
Yes.
But when you think logically about it, for example, if you go back to the showcase thing, a vendor gives you his business card. You say yes, but at the end of the day, you're going to throw it in the trash.
Yeah.
So technically, it would have been better for him if you said no, and he would have had an extra card to give to someone else. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So ultimately, are you really doing the person a service by telling them yes when you really mean no? You know?
More so like the bread lady. Like, I knew I wasn't going to buy bread either, so why would I even try it in the first place? You know, it's like she could have saved that sample for someone else, which she did.
Luckily, you stood up.
To the bread, I said not to the bread.
So going back to the poll with what impacts your mindset the most, environment, self-talk, and
social circle.
I feel that environment and social circle, for me, were definitely the biggest factors growing up. And I think up until I was 25 is really when I started realizing that a lot of it was self-talk. Because it's as if you take on all these things from your environment and your social circle, and after 25, when you get out of college and you start having a job and, you know, setting up your life, then you take on all of these cues from your environment and your social circle, and that turns into self-talk. And you believe that it's your thoughts.
And it's in some way, let's go back to the environment, in some way that's how your personality gets created. It's just by your experiences growing up, what people were telling you that was right or was wrong.
I've noticed that a lot of the times adults, in a way to protect you, might pass on to you a lot of their fears about life in general. And so you take on that fear as if it's yours.
Exactly. And it could be a limiting belief that they have and they pass on to you. Limiting beliefs are just negative assumptions that prevent you from pursuing what you truly want, and it's putting doubt first instead of belief or confidence. You put doubt and you start thinking, and basically turning off the idea of that you can achieve something, and the fear of failure or the fear of so many things start popping up, and you trying to protect yourself in a way, you start creating beliefs and being like, no, I cannot do that, I'm too old.
Have you watched Inside Out 2? Or Inside Out and Inside Out 2? You watched Inside Out 2? Okay, this is going to be spoiler alert for people who watch Inside Out 2. But I think it does a really good job at describing your belief system.
Yeah.
And
how fear makes you feel, or how self-confidence makes you
act a certain way. Yeah, it really focused on anxiety for Inside Out 2.
Anxiety too.
What I thought was really brilliant about it just showed you how there's certain parts of your personality that work against you because they make you imagine certain scenarios that might not be reality. And they make you have limiting thoughts about certain things.
Yeah, because in a way it's trying to protect yourself from eventually feeling that you failed or you didn't succeed at something specifically, or
so it's kind of like overthinking too. Yeah, a part of the movie that I really liked, that it really described people pleasing very well to me, is the part where joy and all the other like good emotions, or joy, anger, like all the main emotions that she had at the beginning, were going through the back of her mind. And then at some point there's like, she said something that was against her belief system, and then there's like a big canyon that formed, like the floor crumbled, and it's like everything went like and it created like a huge line on the floor.
So it was like disrupting whatever she truly was, and it was like, no, broke it in half, like that's not you, and it's not working for us, so it broke in half.
Exactly. And it was such a good representation of it for me that today, if ever I do something that's against my true nature, I visualize in my head, that's what you're doing to yourself. You're causing this big
damage in a way.
Yeah, it's like you're lessening your light. It's like you're taking your light whenever you decide to act again.
That's a great example. I love that you said that, the light, that you're, once you stop being yourself, you start, I don't know, it's just, I like the way you
taking
said
away
it. Like, I like that
light.
example of being like the light. It's just going down just if you're not being yourself.
Yes.
I like it.
Because when you really try and imagine it, it's like if someone says,
you start like becoming like a shadow in a way, and it's you're not honoring
yourself.
Not honoring, then you just like disappearing and become like background in your life, basically.
Yeah, because you become and when I was a kid, I don't know if it's a Haitian thing, but we used to say, elle est beurre, like meaning, she's butter.
No, that's a Haitian thing, I think.
But it's like in a way of saying like,
butter.
She's butter. She doesn't matter.
She's whatever.
Her opinion is always gonna be plain.
It's like
her opinion won't move the needle at the end of the day.
Right. It's like, I think that could be related in Spanish. It's like, she's an egg with no salt. It's like
how do you say it in Spanish?
Huevo sin sal. Like she's like whatever.
Yeah. And I think no matter who you are, at the end of the day, if you are authentically you, everyone has that salt in them. Everyone has that part of them that makes them special. Yeah,
it's just wanting to be that and be confident about you can be that, and people will like you, or people will gravitate towards you just because of the salt.
Yes. And it could be that maybe a good majority of people in your immediate surroundings don't relate to it, but ultimately, if that's truly who you are, you will attract the right people, the right circumstances to you no matter what.
Yeah, and that's a good example, because that doesn't mean that, let's say, your group of friends or your family cannot relate to what you want to be. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just they don't relate to it, and that's okay, and people will gravitate towards you that can't relate. And you would rather have people who feel the same way or to understand you than having people that don't. So it's being open to be okay with the fact that people, if don't relate to you, it's not on you, it's just because they think differently, and that's okay too.
Exactly. And I think it's about seeing the long-term vision for yourself. Do I prefer to make myself little today just to keep pleasing people and ultimately never getting to where I want to be? Or do I want to choose today to make it uncomfortable for myself in the moment and ultimately be at a place where I'm fully myself?
Yeah. And it's something that, as you said, when I guess in high school and then you go to college and then you're just going with the current and you're growing so much in so little time at the same time. So you're getting to know yourself, and then when you are out there in the world, and that's when you need to start making decisions on yourself and what do you want to become. So it's just starting to connect more and being more mindful about what step you take.
So going back to that, so I mentioned that for me it was around 25 where I really started taking responsibility for my self-talk and my mindset. Is that the same for you?
I think it was in two ways. The first one would be when I moved here, that I was like alone. I didn't have that many close people in Miami when I moved here, so I was more alone. I was in a different country, so I had to be more responsible, and I started to connecting more with myself, but I started being more mindful about things recently. When more or less when we started talking about things that we were like, we want to have more boundaries. So that's when recently, and with smaller acts, I know it's really hard for me to set boundaries, and I don't want to be that person who's a people pleaser or that says yes to everything. And we have talked about this, not related to this topic, but you mentioned to me one time that you had like a vision board or something, and you wanted to be this person, and then what do you need to be that person? And I have related that to this and being like, I don't want to be a people pleaser, so what do I need to do to stop being that way? So it's just like start being with smaller acts, like just the farmers market example, and also with work, being more outspoken about what I feel and explain more, or also participate more in meetings, or with group of friends, being more genuine about what I say and being like, oh, actually I don't want to do that, or just be more true to myself. And of course it takes time. It's not something that you overcome, especially since, like, let's say I started doing this months ago. I've been like that 27 years, so I don't expect it to change overnight, but keeping in mind what I want to become, and then just slowly work towards that. So I feel recently I've been more mindful about it and connected to that level recently.
So ultimately, I think it comes down to making a decision that you want to change in order to have an impact on limiting beliefs and boundaries. It comes from you.
Yes, it needs to start from you. It cannot start from what other people tell you to do, because if you don't truly want to change, or if you don't truly want to be a certain person, then it won't happen.
Yeah, it won't happen. Jeffrey Allen mentioned in a reel that he posted, which I love that message. I shared it with you earlier, so I'll share it now. He said that if you're looking at him in admiration, to know that the reason why you admire him is because he's found a way to be authentically himself. That it's not because you wish to be exactly like him, but it's because you wish to be fully in your own skin and loving your authentic self and speaking your truth. And I think that's true for anything and any, like, your goal should always be to get to the truest version of yourself, because until you get there, nothing in life will ever be satisfying and everything will always be fearful, I think.
Yes. And when you said that, I started to think about people I admired, and it's just people who are very themselves and very upfront. They don't think what other people think. So also I've thought about it, and what I admire most from people, it's what I want to be. So it's like I want to be super confident about myself. So I admire them getting to that point as well.
And also know that it's a constant process, like everything. I mean, we talked about this in the meditation episode, that it's a constant maintenance that you have to do. And it's the same thing with your confidence. It's the same thing with your boundaries. Sometimes I feel very confident with my boundaries. I'm able to set them and be like, no, this is this, that. And other times when I'm maybe faced in a situation where I'm not very comfortable and the person is maybe overpowering my energy.
Right. Which happens too.
It happens, and it's like I lose myself. I don't remember who I am.
It gets foggy, and
it gets like, foggy.
Yeah. And also, I read this somewhere that confidence is built up also by repetitiveness. So that ties back to the example of starting to say no. You don't need to
Step by
step and use repetition. It helps you build confidence slowly, and it gets to a point that saying no, it won't be a big deal in a specific situation. Or speaking up in the beginning, you might speak up in certain situations, but then as you start doing that more often, you'll build confidence, and you eventually won't think about it that way.
That's a good point. And adding to that, I think number one, repetition, but also number two, go slower. Take your time. Don't feel like you have to give that person an answer right on the spot. If ever you feel your boundaries are being challenged. Just take time with yourself. It's okay to not have all the answers all the time. It's okay to say, I'm not there yet. It's okay to say, I'll get back to you.
Yes. That's a great point, because I think it's people-pleasing tendencies that where you're saying, yes, I'll do that.
Yeah,
and it's
like right away.
Right away. Like, you don't have time to think about even a way to say no. It's just like, yes.
Yeah. And you don't even think about it. You lose yourself.
Yes.
And then it's afterwards that you're like, oh.
And it's like making decisions, not for yourself. You're making decisions for people around you.
Yeah, because you can tell that the person is asking you because they want you to do it. So to please them, then you want to say yes.
Yes.
What is the difference between being selfish and setting healthy boundaries?
What comes to mind is you have to be selfish to being able to create healthy boundaries. Selfish in a way to put yourself first and being able to make those decisions for yourself and not for anyone else.
Because I've come across people who feel it's selfish to set boundaries, but in a negative way.
The thing is that we think that the word selfish is a negative word. Since I was very young, it's been used as a negative word, like, oh, you're so selfish, you don't want to let me play with your toy. You know, like it's been used so negatively. But I think recently people are more aware that you need to be selfish to be happy.
Where I've come to the conclusion with like selfishness is that it's okay to be selfish if ultimately your goal is to want better for people around you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it shouldn't be seen as a negative word.
So big picture, we saw that boundaries and limiting beliefs are kind of one and the same, where you should approach both of them in a similar fashion as to who am I truly.
And to connect with yourself and understand where you want to stand.
Understand where you want to stand.
Exactly. We should quote that.
And quote.
Understand where you want to stand. As you are.
As you are.
As you are, Pot.
Yeah, so it really all comes down to letting go of fear and understanding yourself.
Yes. Understand where you want to stand.
Understand where you want to stand. Trust your intuition.
Connect with your emotions and feelings.
Journal about who you are.
And be more mindful of certain situations, and when you are in them, trying to be mindful about your decisions and be selfish about it. Put yourself first.
Yeah, it's okay to put yourself first because ultimately putting yourself first is going to be a service to everyone around you.
And being selfish is not a bad thing.
Yes,
so be selfish. Be selfish.
As long as you're doing it for the good of people.
From a healthy place.
All right, I think that was a good one.
Yeah, I agree.
So next week, be sure to tune in because we're going to be doing something very special.
Yes, we want it to be a surprise, but the only hint is that we're going to do our first vlog ever.
Yes, and we're very excited about it.
Yes, you're very excited. But that's it. We're not saying anything else.
Yes, not saying anything else. All you know, it's health and wellness related.
Yes,
it's going to be a vlog.
Yes.
So, we're excited about it.
Yeah.
And if you like this episode, please leave us a comment below. Ask us any questions. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
And the only way that this podcast grows is if you share our content and subscribe.
So please do. You can find us on TikTok, Instagram at AsYouArePod.
See you next Wednesday.
Love you. Bye.